This is slide 2 of our 80s unit, Reagan Abroad, looking at some of Reagan's foreign policy issues here, foreign affairs. And we will start with something here at home, but meant to stop foreign problems. It's known as SDI. That stands for Strategic Defense Initiative. Strategic Defense Initiative. It is better known as Star Wars. Named after the popular movie that had just come out a few years earlier. One of the first things Reagan does when he comes into office in 1980 is announce that the United States would develop a high-tech missile defense system, that we would be able to shoot down any Soviet missiles before they got to us. This is his Strategic Defense Initiative. How it was supposed to work was that the United States was going to build orbiting battle stations. Yes, as you see in the Time magazine picture here. Reagan envisioned these orbiting stations, all orbiting Earth. And when they detected a missile coming at the United States, they would fire laser beams and vaporize the missile before it could get to us. Everybody laughed at him. Reagan says, "I'll show you, we'll build it." So he takes billions of dollars from the budget, and he gets the best scientists NASA has and the Defense Department and puts them together and says, "Okay, guys, build this." And they're like, "Mr. President, we can't build this. We don't have this sort of technology yet." He says, "Oh, sure you do. Here, take some more money. Now go build this." So they go and they come back and they're like, "Look, Mr. President, we don't know how to do this. We can't build it." He said, sure, it's just a money. Here, take some more money. And he keeps throwing more and more money at the problem, and they keep coming back and saying, "Mr. President, I don't care how much money you give us, we can't do this." Star Wars would be sort of the albatross that would forever hang around Reagan's neck. He would become a laughing stock for Star Wars. It never does get built. Billions and billions of dollars are wasted on this program. And Star Wars would go down in history as one of the low points of Reagan's presidency. Now, let's look at Europe, first of all, and Poland. Poland had been one of the Soviet Union's most dependable satellite nations. A lot of industry there, a lot of money made for the Soviet Union there. But the workers got tired of communism. They got tired of doing all the work and never seeing any of the benefits, any of the profits. So they decide they're going to form a labor union. Now, that doesn't sound that bad. Here in America, it's not. But in a communist country, labor unions are illegal because you have no rights. You have no freedoms. The government tells you what you're going to do, and you have no say about it. So there is no need for a union to speak up. But they decide they're going to speak up. And the labor union would be called Solidarity, meaning togetherness. And it will be formed and led by a man named Lech Walesa. Lech Walesa will form Solidarity. Down here at the bottom, look, they even have their own little logo. Solidarność, I guess that's solidarity in Polish. The real red and white is the Polish flag, I know that much. But Walesa would form this labor union and publicly challenge the Polish government, which is communist, backed by Moscow and the Soviet Union. Walesa is the most unlikely leader you can imagine. He's not a politician. He's not a public speaker. He's an electrician, I believe. He was a dock worker. He becomes an electrician, and he is the guy that gets chosen for this, and he will become the face of the labor union movement in Poland. Pope John Paul II, who was Polish, after he is named Pope, his first trip outside the Vatican, he goes back home. He goes to Poland, and he speaks to the people at a rally, a solidarity rally, and he tells them, you are human beings, you are men, you are not animals. Do not crawl on your bellies, stand and walk like a man. And some people say that was sort of the beginning of the end of communism in Poland and overall. So solidarity in Valenza, along with Pope John Paul II, will go a long way toward ending Soviet Union rule and communist rule in Poland. All right. In the Middle East, let's turn our attention there to Lebanon. Israel had picked a fight with Lebanon, and then Lebanon fought back against Israel, and, as we always do, we had pledged to defend Israel. So the United States sent troops to the Middle East as part of an international peacekeeping force to kind of broker a peace between Israel and Lebanon. While there, a suicide bomber crashed a truck full of explosives into a Marine base, a U.S. Marine base. This is 1983, killing more than 200 Marines. The U.S. retaliates, and 7 Americans, military personnel, are taken hostage and held in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. So now Reagan has a hostage problem, similar to the one Carter had, not near the scale, but 7 Americans are being held hostage in Lebanon. So keep that in mind, because we'll come back to that here momentarily. Now, let's turn our attention to Nicaragua, Central America. In Nicaragua, the government has been overthrown by a communist rebel group known as the Sandinistas. Their leader is a man named Sandino. That's where the name comes from, Sandinistas, the followers of Sandino. These are communist rebels who overthrow the government and put in a communist government in Nicaragua. Now, remember, Reagan's big anti-communist guy, big Cold War guy, right? He simply cannot have a communist government in Central America. But we can't just go invading. So, instead, Reagan will funnel money to a group of Nicaraguan freedom fighters known as the Contras. Okay? These are the good guys. So you got Sandinistas bad, Contras good. Right? These are Nicaraguan freedom fighters trying to overthrow the Sandinistas and put in a government that will be favorable to the United States. So Reagan is going to ask Congress to send money and aid, whatever the Contras need, to help them. But there's a problem. It turns out that even though they're not communist, the Contras aren't much better than the Sandinistas. The Contras are killing people left and right that disagree with them, abusing human rights, and Congress cuts off all funding to the Contras. They tell Reagan, we're not funding people who go around murdering anybody who disagrees with them. So Congress will cut off money to the Contras. Right? So now Reagan's got 2 big problems here. He's got hostages being held in Lebanon, and he's got a communist government in Nicaragua, and Congress has cut off his funding for the people fighting the communists. Right? Which sets up a very well-known scandal involving Reagan here, known as the Iran-Contra affair. Okay. Now, back to the Middle East. Iran is in a war with Iraq. And Iran comes to the United States and says, we'd be interested in buying weapons from you. Congress says, no, we're not selling you weapons. You just got done holding 52 of our people hostage for 444 days. We're not doing business with you. Go away. So Congress refuses to allow the Defense Department, Reagan, any of them, to sell weapons to Iran. Okay? enter a man named Oliver North. It's the guy down here. It's a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. There's Oliver North. He's known as Ollie. Oliver North is going to take it upon himself to solve all of Reagan's problems for him. Okay? North will go to Iran and say, listen, you want to buy weapons from us, right? Iran says, yes, right, but you can't sell them to us. He says, well, maybe we can. We can work out a deal. North says, look, we've got 7 Americans being held hostage in Lebanon, a Middle Eastern Arab country. You're a Middle Eastern Arab country. How about you negotiate with Lebanon to get our hostages out, and I will work out a weapons sale to you. So, Iran does their thing, Lebanon releases the 7 American hostages, and Reagan looks like a hero because the hostages are home. Hooray for Reagan. Hooray for the hostages, right? North, then, will sell Iran weapons in direct contradiction for what he was supposed to do. But all that money from the weapon sales to Iran, North's not going to put into his pocket and get rich. Instead, he's going to take that money and give it to the Contras in Nicaragua. Another thing he's not supposed to do. So now he's broken 2 laws here, 2 directives from Congress at least. Okay? Word of this gets out. Okay? Everybody thinks Reagan has orchestrated this. Oliver North steps up and testifies before Congress, which is the picture you see here at the bottom. He shows up in Congress in full Marine dress uniform with all his medals on his chest there, raises his right hand, swears to tell the truth, and says, I did it. I did it all. I got the hostages released. I sold weapons to Iran. I gave money to the Contras, and I'd do it all again because I'm a loyal patriot. And America goes, oh my God, somebody took responsibility for something. They're amazed. North will not do any jail time. In fact, he becomes this sort of cult hero. In 1988, after Reagan's done being president, it's rumored North is going to run for president. Ollie for president bumper stickers show up all over the country because North was a stand-up guy who took responsibility for what he did, even if it was illegal. Okay? Now, the question becomes, did Reagan know about it? Did he authorize it? Reagan says he had no idea what was going on, had no idea the arms sale occurred, no idea the money was sent to the Contras, nothing. So one of 2 things happens here. Either Reagan is guilty as sin, or he has no idea what the people under him are doing and looks like an incompetent leader. Neither one are good. Okay? Somehow, Reagan comes out of this without anything sticking to him. This is about the time Reagan gets a very famous nickname. He is known as the Teflon president. Teflon, T-E-F-L-O-N, Teflon. It's the stuff that's on non-stick pans, pots and pans and skillets and all that so that food slips right out. Nothing sticks to it. That's Reagan. No matter what's going on around him, nothing ever sticks to him. He never gets blamed for any of this. The people around him do, not Reagan. Unlike Nixon, who goes down with the ship. Reagan won't. Reagan will keep his reputation and image very clean. All right, let's finish up here and talk about Mikhail Gorbachev. Okay? The Soviet Union has a new leader. In 1985, Gorbachev will become the new Soviet premier. And Reagan sees in Gorbachev a guy that he likes, and he believes that he can work with. Okay? Reagan is determined to win the Cold War, and he thinks Gorbachev is the guy to help him do it. Gorbachev realizes that communism is failing, that it's going to die. So we can get in front of it and embrace it and deal with it, or we can fight a losing battle against it. Gorbachev says, we're going to move on. Okay? Here you see a picture of Reagan and Gorbachev. They became very good friends very respectful of each other. Now, Gorbachev knows that he has to rebuild the Soviet economy, and he's got to kind of rebuild the Soviet Union, or he's got to rebuild Russia, at least. To do that, we're going to see two new policies in place in the Soviet Union. The first one is called glasnost. Right? These are both Russian words. Glasnost, it means openness. Right? Under Gorbachev, the Soviet Union is going to start to allow a whole lot more personal freedoms. Some freedom of speech, some freedom of press, political liberty. You're now free to speak out against the government if you want to. So an openness, more personal rights and more personal freedoms. Also, another movement here, a new policy, called perestroika. Perestroika means restructuring. Okay? And Gorbachev is going to restructure the Soviet economy, starting to bring in some elements of free market capitalism, privately owned businesses, competition, getting the government out of people's pocketbooks. Okay? So Gorbachev is going to be the guy to work with here to bring an end to the Cold War.